welcome back to the Subtle Sport podcast. As always, this podcast is sponsored by ERG Builders. ERG Builders are the new main sponsor for the year, and we're proud to have them on board. Now, ERG are based in Northamptonshire and the Kettering area, and aim to be the constructor of choice in the residential and commercial sectors, approaching their work with honesty and integrity. You can get their number at 077 363 764 821 or head to their website www.ergbuilders.co.uk. Thank you for their support this year and the people over there. And let's move forward into today, where once again we are joined by our newest addition to the team, Zach. Zach, how are you, mate? It's been a couple of weeks since I last spoke to you, but how you been?
Yeah, I've been good. Been just busy on my Twitter. Been very good.
Yeah, and Bailey's not here again, sadly. He's working. I need to have serious conversations with that man because his commitments obviously lie in the wrong places. But I'm very happy to say we're joined today by Frankie Fry, someone I know personally from my time when I played at Kettering. Frankie, how are you, mate?
Hey, so I'm good, pal. I'm good. Happy to be here with you and Zach.
Good, mate. I mean, it's been a long time in the works. I wanted to try and get you on. Me and Bailey have both wanted to get you on, so I'm glad that it's finally come to fruition, mate. And I think the best place to start would be an introduction into yourself, mate, just to tell myself, Zach, and everyone listening, a little rundown of how you got into football and everything else in between.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was in Belfast on my A licence last week, and one of the tasks was going through our journey in football. Firstly, I grew up in the game. My dad was a player before I come along, then a manager, was an owner for a short spell, and he's 80 now and still going as director of football. I grew up in it, and then myself, I was lucky. I realised quite early on that I wasn't any good as a player, but I got into coaching early, and then that progressed from academy coaching into first team coaching with Kettering and now Real Bedford.
And yeah, you said there that you grew up, being in and around the game with your old man, who is obviously a well-known figure, being Barry Fry, of course. I mean, to anyone listening, they'll know about his involvement with Peterborough, won't they? I mean, what was it like being in around him, learning from him and everything as a kid?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's only when I actually think, because growing up it was normal for me, right? Because it was the only thing I was used to. But when I look back now, it was amazing, like the experiences I had. Don't get me wrong, it's tough. It's like Christmas Day. There's a lot of Christmases where you'd wake up at 8 o'clock, open a present, and then he'd have to go off to training. Obviously, it's so consuming football, so there's a lot of time when even he's home, he's not there. But at the same time, I've got some incredible experiences. I remember it used to be different back in the day. Like I remember I'd just go sit on the bench with him for a game.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that now. I think you have to have a certain role, but I'd just be sitting on the bench of the championship games watching. I'd be around the changing room. There was a couple of times where I was meant to go into school and he'd take me to training instead. So it was a brilliant upbringing. I had some great experiences, and without realising it at the time, I've obviously seen a lot and observed a lot that I still use today.
Yeah, like you said, he was a manager as well for a little bit, and now, like you say, still director of football at Peterborough, 80 years of age, managing the likes of Birmingham, Peterborough, Barnet, just to name a few. When you yourself was going into coaching, did he give you any tips at all, or was it just you finding yourself and doing it your own way as such?
Yeah, pretty much that. My dad's always been that way. I remember when I did play only just grassroots as a young boy, like everyone used to always think he'd be on the sidelines shouting, screaming, but now he'd take himself off, he'd just walk around the pitch and just be really quiet. And he's been like that in my career. He's always, don't get me wrong, he's always been there.
Yeah.
When I've needed to, and the privilege I have is football's not changed that much, so anything that I've experienced, he's experienced, and so much more. So it's always good there just to run anything by him or just get his support, and but it's very much about just finding my own path and my own way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Zach, I'll bring you into this now, mate. Is there anything you want to ask Frankie about growing up with his dad in that football environment at all?
Well, like, he must have been just like that massive impact in your life. Like, from like growing up just constantly in that football environment, like has it just like was just like everything just football from like day one? Like has that
Yeah,
been like what you've wanted to do just because like you've had been in that environment basically forever?
yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I've been fortunate with as well is, though he's been a manager and that he started at very low, like even before Barnet was at Dunstable. So similar to how non-league is nowadays, like you don't have the big staff and infrastructure. So he was so hands-on and everything. Like there's pictures of him building stands and cutting the pitch, and no job's too big or small. He just loved it, and that had a future. That's something that's ingrained in me as well. So when I was growing up, he's still the same now. Like he's the simplest guy. He just loves his football, loves his horse racing, and that's it. But yeah, in terms of me growing up, I had so many insights of so many different areas as well. It wasn't just on the pitch. There was a lot of things off the pitch that I was aware of and could see as well. And I think that's had an impact on me as well, where I've always been interested in general operations of the club, not just on the grass or one aspect or the other.
I think, yeah, also following on a little bit from that, Frankie, because you have also done like stuff like scouting as well and being in around those general operations of clubs, not just coaching. What were those experiences like, and how do you look back on those?
Yeah, but brilliant, brilliant. I'm sure we'll go into it, but I started off as coaching, um, but it got to a stage where I felt I was a very good and almost natural like development coach with the player, but I still had to learn so much more about the game. So it was a conscious choice for two reasons. One, when I was younger, even when I was coaching, I didn't have a passion for it. Not that I have now, anyway.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to be in football, a little bit like you was touching on, Zach. I knew I wanted to be in football, but I just didn't know which area. So I kind of stuck my toe in different areas. And then when I got into scouting, that was a time when I really enjoyed it, but also I knew that if I wanted to go higher up, I'd have to improve my knowledge of the game, especially tactically. So scouting gave me a great platform to do that.
And with scouting as well, because you have, your talent ID qualifications and so forth. One thing I wanted to bring forward was, does it differ when you're watching a player when you're scouting them, or compared to coaching them as such on the grass?
Uh, not so much, not so much. So the way I've always worked, and this is probably where it sinks quite well, is I'm very big on, it's not my job as a coach to put you in a box and tell you what to do.
Yeah.
My job as a coach is, what are you good at? Let's see what you're good at, and let's really enhance that. Of course, you've got to be competent in other areas, but really it's your strengths that's going to get you. So I've always been quite adaptable around the player, and in scouting it's the same. It's what do they bring now? When I was scouting, I was lucky. I'd spent a lot of years at Peterborough, so I kind of knew what a Peterborough United player would look like as well,
Yeah.
and I knew how good they were once they was in the building at developing. So all I had to do was just see a player who has that enthusiasm, has certain strengths, knowing that, well, actually going into a Peterborough, I could really take them up another level, which they've proven so often.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Zach, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, mate, because you do some scout reports on your Twitter pages, and you've done some scouting roles before. I mean, you're obviously just started into it, but how are you finding scouting roles and stuff like that so far?
Yeah, so just started a scout role basically in the last week at a National League South club. Not sure I can say which one just yet. It's not all official yet, but yeah, it's something that I'm really just enjoying. And it's just like that pure enjoyment, just like going through, watching players who maybe be like step 4, step 5, and just like watching them, evaluating them, seeing what their strengths are, and also like the other stuff like trying to look at their character and whether they'd fit a certain system. It's something that like I found just really enjoyable, just like in the last few weeks. Yeah,
Hey, Frankie, I'm sure you can relate to that as well. Making sure not just the ability of the player, isn't it, but the character, the personality, and who they are as a person, isn't it, is crucial.
Absolutely, Zach. I think you're spot on there. Listen, anyone can really go and see a player, can't they? Like we've all been at games and players stand out. It's looking at the particular strengths or attributes of where they're going into. It's like, yeah, anyone can recommend a player, but if it doesn't suit the way the manager likes to play or the type of player profile that he likes to has, then it's going to be inconsistent and you just get a mix of players. But I think what you said about character as well, it's so important because as a coach, I've always gone from character first. Like, that's the biggest thing in sort of setting the culture, getting the dressing room right. I think if you get the right characters, then you can achieve more rather than if you just get good players but maybe not the right characters. It can sometimes cause a more of a toxic environment than a positive one.
No, definitely,
100%.
mate. 100%. I mean, like we said, look, you're a coach now, you know, doing your roles at Kettering last season and before that with the youth setups, now at Real Bedford. I mean, what is it like transitioning for you from that youth team coaching where you would have had players like myself and, you know, so many different kind of players? I had to get myself in there, of course. To now going to senior level coaching.
That was a big turning point for me. That was a big turning point. So it, even just going into the under 19s program at Kettering and leading the under 18s, that was the first time in my career that I'd coached competitively. And so before that, it was always academy coaching where results didn't matter. Rightly so, because it's more about player development.
Yeah.
But I always felt like I wasn't quite in my groove there. I loved working with players, loved developing them, but I didn't really enjoy match days. And then when I come to Kettering, and Luke Graham deserves a lot of credit for my development as well, because that was the first time I'd kind of been able to blend my coaching style with competitive football, and we played great off each other because I'd come from Peterborough where it's all about good, strong technical players playing a certain way. Luke's background was obviously coming from non-league and being effective in non-league. And I think the truth is, and the biggest learning curve for me was it needs to be a mix. And then when I did eventually go into the first team, I felt in a great position where I didn't have to change anything I was doing. I'd already been doing it for the previous year. And I was just able to progress myself there.
Yeah, like you said, it was going into that competitive environment because obviously the under-19s competing in, you know, stuff like the FA Youth Cup where they went pretty far. And then obviously you had the Wednesday, the scholar teams having 3 teams, you know, throughout the academy. So what was it like being in that environment constantly? Because for me personally, and me and Bailey have spoke about this before, like being in it was made as professional as possible, wasn't it? Like the education program, trying to be training twice a week in basically every day and matches on a Wednesday. So how did you find that being in that sort of environment?
Do you know what? I'm pleased you said that because the biggest thing with my first year at Kettering and what I took from the under-19s program is exactly that. It's about setting the culture. So coming in from the start, I was very much about, you know, I don't want it to be like school where you have senior level and years above and they're all in their cliques. I was very big about integrating everyone together. And that first year, there was obviously 3 years because your group stayed on an extra year.
Yeah, we did.
It was in COVID year. So to have 3 years and we had about 50, 55 students, but the connection of the whole group was brilliant because there was no little cliques, no gimmicks. Like everyone was in it together, and that was the most important thing for me first, setting the environment, getting the environment right.
Yeah.
And then it was brilliant because in terms of my role was leading the football side, so I was never one to neglect one team and over another. So it was very important that everyone was getting the same type of coaching, everyone was getting the same care and focus, and just have fun with it. And listen, I can only do so much. Like there was a lot of great students on the course who really bought into it, and like it was a real great time for me.
Hey Zach, is there anything you want to bring forward at all at the moment, mate?
Well, sort of just like, has there been sort of any like big differences going from sort of youth academy football to men's football? Like, what has been sort of the biggest difference you've noticed?
Obviously, results is key at first team level. So I always gone by like sort of like a little pyramid. Like when it's about development football, the bottom base of the pyramid is player development. That's the main focus, and then you've got team performance and winnings just the top of the pyramid. It's flipped once you get into first team. It's winnings the bottom bit, because if you don't have that, you can't build the rest of the pyramid. Then it's about team performance and then the player development at the top. But one thing I have noticed is really football's football, the environment's the environment. You're still working with people, you're still coaching. So, yeah, yes, you're working with a bit more demanding players because once you get to first team level, quite often how it should be, people are more demanding because no one's there to waste time. Everyone's there to get the best out of themselves, you know. So I love that side. But at the end of the day, you're still just working with a group of people, trying to get the best out of them by creating the best environment and giving them the best tools.
Hey, one thing I also want to say, Frank, like in our last podcast, we spoke with Barry Druitt Barlow, who's now the owner at Malden and Tiptree. They're doing a lot of good things on and off the pitch, and one thing they've started up is an education program, is a BTEC course and stuff like that. And you're seeing more and more non-league teams across the pyramid doing stuff like that, aren't you? And being someone who's been in that environment, being in those sort of courses, would you push for non-league clubs to go and do something like that at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. When they're done right, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
They're brilliant because, I mean, firstly, not everyone's got privilege to be as part of an academy, but everyone loves football, and sometimes you do get the late developers. So it's another base for one, people to carry on their football journey and maybe develop through a lower level. Two, even if people aren't going to go and be football, being in a full-time football environment, it might give them insights to go through another pathway in football. So like yourself, for some reason, you didn't get called up to the first team, unfortunately.
I don't know why.
But you've always had a passion for football,
Yeah.
and now you're mixing it with your uni course and media, which is brilliant because I think that's what's great for me. Like, it's not just the successes on the pitch, it's the successes off the pitch, and if people just love football, that's a win. But I have been part of a couple of programs or been aware of a couple of programs where unfortunately you do get the other side where people just see it as financial gains.
Yeah.
And like any business, if you're only in it for that and you don't put the right investment in or you don't get the right staff to do it, they're not always turn out great. But as I said, from my experience at Kettering, I was lucky because I was surrounded by great people, from Luke leading it, and then with Matt Heath came in and the rest of the staff there. It was brilliant for me.
Yeah, I mean, you said about, successes off the pitch, but you did obviously have successes on the pitch coming from that academy. A number of people making step 2 and step 3 debuts, one in particular who we'll speak about later again in Luca Miller, but a couple of others, of course, as well. I mean, what are those moments for you like as a coach, watching a player who you've seen day in, day out in youth setups go on and make a senior debut?
Yeah, but brilliant, because that's what that football is like. Listen, we were quite successful in the under-18s. We had great success in the 3 years we were there. And I take a lot of pride in that, but the pride also comes from you giving the boys experiences and you're giving that bond. And I know a lot of youths from the course have got good friendships still from it, even though we're several years after. But also in terms of developing and getting pathway in football, it's important to win.
Yeah.
Because that's what first team football is. So helping them achieve that hopefully gives them a little bit that they can take forward onto their journey and keep developing. So there's a few players playing at lower level non-league who was part of that group, which as I've got great memories of, and I'm just as happy for them. But yeah, when you see someone who works as hard as Luca Miller does, who puts in so much more time and dedication and gets the rewards from it, which I'm sure we'll talk about, very proud of him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Zach, have you got anything to add quickly before we move on to the next section at all?
No, not really. Cause especially unlike you, I've never really done BTECs, and I've never been a football player. Haven't played football probably in 10 years since I was in primary school. But yeah.
We touched on it a little bit there, Frankie, about some of the challenges and the differences going into senior football and senior coaching. What are some of the successes along the way? Something that you've kind of taken like a duck to water almost, just gone in your stride with.
Do you know what? Firstly, just working with players, because again, that can be sometimes when you're working with adults now,
Yeah.
it can be demanding. You have to have a certain personality or character with it. That's something that I feel comfortable with. But also going, and this probably better answers the previous question you asked, where one of the differences is you have to deal with a lot of. I was going to swear then.
Ah, that's fine. You're more than welcome, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to deal with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Because I had a great quote last week where every club's its own mess.
Mm.
So obviously, from a fan perspective, from the outside perspective, you're just looking on the pitch. You're just looking at players playing, and you're looking at the result on a Saturday or Tuesday night. But the reality is there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. I've listened to previous podcasts of yourself, so when you've had like Fozzie on, and
Yeah.
he gives you a little bit of insight of what it was like at National League North that year and last year. Obviously, I was with Ryan Beswick at Nuneaton as well, and I mean, you're going in there, and the electrics got cut off. The last 2 months of the season, the club was being run by a generator. There was leaks. There was leaks in the ceiling. So you've got to deal with all that stuff as well. But again, probably because of my upbringing, I embrace all that.
Yeah.
I kind of thrive off that a little bit. It's easy to sort of distance yourself from it and say, oh, it shouldn't be like that. But the fact is, well, it is. So what are you going to do? So you just got to roll your sleeves up and get stuck in and deal with it as best you can.
No, definitely, mate. I mean, let's go on to a bit of you as a coach and your styles and stuff like that, because obviously each coach is different to the next. Everyone knows that. But for you in particular, what are, some of your demands and non-negotiables as a coach, which you ask from all your players, whether it's a youth player or whether it's a senior player?
I have high standards in just doing the right things. Doing the right things. It might be a bit of a cliche right now. Like I'll never hold anything against a player if they're struggling technically or lack of technical ability. But it's the lack of effort that's when I'll go for someone, so to speak. It's just taking pride in what you do. I'm very big on developing the person, developing the player, developing the team, because that's what it's all about, just constantly growing. So for me, we've already touched on it, developing the person, that's connecting before you correct them, right? Developing the player, that's working on their strengths. For me, it's what are you good at, how can we enhance that? Like you look at Ben Hart last year, he was fantastic attacking right back. So we're not going to tell him to stay at home.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Hi, you bomb on, you keep getting overlaps, you go forward as much as you can. And he got the most assists in the team. So you work out what a player's strengths is and you encourage it. And then developing the team, that's where you come in more about your style of play, your principles. And for me, I'm very much about... Now, there's a lot of dominating factors. So what league you're playing at, like Kettering, you're a little bit limited with the budget, was a little bit limited with the pitch, but you still want to play attacking football because that's what fans want. Something that I took from Kettering was they'd clap you off the pitch if you lost a game, but as long as you gave it all, you gave it a go.
Yeah.
So you've got to be approach games with attacking intent. I like my teams to have positive possession, which is with a purpose, not just keeping the ball. It's can we progress with the ball? Can we try and penetrate? And I also like my teams to be solid defensively. Like if you can't control an opponent by having the ball, can you control them without the ball? Just by being nice, compact? Can you press from the front? Can you just have a lot of energy and just be exciting?
No, definitely. I mean, that's good to hear. And I think one thing that I'm kind of, just thinking about here is how important is it to obviously create, try and develop a footballer as a footballer, right? But how important is it to try and develop someone as a person and make them a good person as a coach?
Massively. I think we're all motivated by different things. So what might motivate you might be different to what motivates Zach, might be different to what motivates me. And as I said before, my job as a coach isn't just say, this is a box that you've got to fit in. It's my job to say, okay, what is it that you need that gets the best out of you? sometimes it might be football related, sometimes it might be psychologically related, you know. So I think it's so important because, um, as I said, you just sort of facilitating the environment to
Yeah.
put the players first, however that looks like.
No, definitely. I mean, Zach.
Don't get me wrong, there.
Oh no, you keep going, Frank. You
Well,
keep going.
No, I was going to say, don't get me wrong. There are certain standards that they've got to buy into,
Yeah.
and that, don't get me wrong. When it comes to the game day, you're telling them how this is how we play, this is what we're looking for. But in terms of getting the best out of them, I said we all have our little different triggers and motivations,
Yeah.
and also problems.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Zach, I'll let you take a little lead for a second, mate. Have you got anything to ask Frankie about coaching, whether that's, youth or senior?
well, actually, going back to your point about sort of your philosophy and what you like. So over like last year, 18 months, I've been watching a lot of like Real Bedford highlights, gone to a few of their games, and that philosophy just sort of lines up exactly with what they're trying to do and what Rob Sinclair does.
Mm.
Like when sort of you got approached, did you just think it was perfect? It just seems to align perfectly with your philosophy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's something that really excites me. Um, I think the key to being a coach is you have to be adaptable, especially when you're not a manager. If you're a first team coach, assistant, you have to be adaptable because you might have different beliefs to the manager, but you can't be out of sync with him. You have to align with him. Um, but yeah, so with Rob, um, like the few occasions I've spoke to him, and I've said this before, it was like a brief 2 minute chat turns into a whole hour where you're just talking football, and we're very similar in how we see it. And I'm really excited um, at the potential for me to develop as well as helping the team develop, working with him because, like I said, the style of play, he's very clear on how he wants to play. He's very clear on his style, um, and it's something that I buy into quite a bit. So I'm excited with where we can get with that.
No, definitely. We'll talk some Real Bedford and football in Bedford for a little bit now. I mean, Zach, I'll let you do a main lead on it for this section. But just quickly from me, Frankie, with the club getting promoted, every single season, it's recently since the takeovers and so forth, debuting at step 3 this season. What are the aims and the goals? Because I think most people would initially predict the team to be at the top end of the table, right? But it's a very competitive league, isn't it? And you'll know that being in that last season. You've got the likes of Kettering, of course, Spalding, who are doing good signings, Harbour making really good signings, Hales Owen Corner have come up as well, other top teams at this level showing real ambition. So it may only be mid-June, but what are those aims looking forward?
Yeah, do you know what? I think Rob and his staff have done so well, like I said, to get 3 promotions in a row. You can't expect that it's just going to keep going, keep going. I think the step up to step 3 is it's a big step, but I think when you look at the team they had last year, I think keeping a lot of the players from there and just adding a little bit on top, I think the group have a good chance to go in and do well at the level. Now, to go and say, "Oh, want to go get promotion again?" Of course we do, but you have to be respectful. There's probably about 10 teams right now looking at it, fancy themselves for the top 5. You've got some teams who's well established in that league, very much know what the level's about. You got some teams who are very recruiting, very strong. You just mentioned like Spalding. I think they've made some brilliant signings. Harbour is adding on to what they've got last year. Kettering, especially at the front end, look very solid. So you'd hope they'll be up there again. So for us, it's simple for me. I just want to go in there and can we just win as many games as we can? Can we get as many points as we can and see where we're at? And hopefully we're at the better end of the table. And it'll just be constantly assessing. It'll be saying, okay, do we need to add more here or are we in a good place with the boys? But I think with the squad they have, it's a young squad, but they're really hungry. You see how convincingly they won the league last year, and they carry that hunger into the league next year. I'm sure they'll have a good season.
No, definitely. I mean, Zach, I'll let you lead on this now, mate.
Yeah, so sort of like one thing that I've noticed with Real Bedford, so sort of since Sinclair came in, he's sort of had sort of a very steady squad. He hasn't brought in loads of players every summer. He's sort of had a young squad, sort of like lots of players from like Luton under 21s who got released and so on and so on. So like,
Mm.
when for you coming in, are you sort of just excited to work with that sort of very young group and just sort of help develop them like even further? Because like I've seen most of the squad's been retained from last season. There's not going to be many changes I expect over the next few weeks. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I am. It's funny because with Kettering, each of my 3 years there was a huge overhaul of players, and that you can be successful different ways, but it's very difficult when you're chopping and changing constantly off season and then during the season. So it's exciting for me to go in, and also a lot of my upbringing through Peterborough, it's the same sort of style that they've always believed in. Young, hungry players who are good players, but want to learn, want to get better, want to be developed, want to keep improving. And it's not just about, okay, yeah, we're just happy being step three players. They all want to improve and be the best they can. I think Rob and Mike Duckett, they've done brilliant at coaching those players and adding more. And it'll be the same again this year for us.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm trying to think. So obviously with Real Bedford as well, you've got sort of the whole vision of the club. Like
Mm.
it's an exciting project, like on and off the pitch, and with like what Pete McCormack's trying to do, like try and really like make the Real Bedford sort of the club for Bedford, and like
Mm.
a big club in Bedford. And obviously, Bedford lad yourself, is that sort of part of the reason you joined, sort of like be part of this like exciting big new project?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like in my lifetime, Bedford's as a turn in terms of football around the town, it's not had the ambition. Um, it's been a big non-league name around the town, but it's never really been going anywhere, and it's never looked like it's going in the right direction. Um, Whereas obviously with Pete coming in, and the fact that I really admire the fact that he's willing to do it at step six. He's not just one who just wanted to go in and get a team already doing well and just take them up a couple levels.
Mm.
It's now I want to do it for the town. So I think initially he approached Bedford Town. They didn't want to sell, so he's like, that's fine. I'll go to Bedford FC. He's obviously renamed it, but what he wants to do for the town and for the community is huge. And being a Bedford boy, yeah, that's had a massive pull on me because it's always been a dream of mine. You know, when you always think, oh, if I win the lottery, what would I do? You buy your local football town. Can you get it into as high as it can? And Bedford, I think it's the biggest town that's never had a football league team.
Mm.
But even just to be in the National League would be huge for the town. The fact that it's got the ambitions and potentially the resources to keep going. Now, listen, nothing's going to happen overnight or without hard work, but you look at the potential it could have, and the future for Bedford could be as exciting as it's ever been.
No, definitely. I mean, just quickly for me, I mean, looking at the new chapter with Real Bedford, like we said, you know, they've gone from strength to strength each year. The project is obviously, I find it very exciting. I'm sure Zach finds it very exciting. A lot of people find it really exciting. But it obviously does bring mixed reviews from across, you know, some fan bases in non-league and so forth. But for me personally, I did some match reporting there at the club a few months ago, and everyone was just so kind, so welcoming, and just a proper community around the club. And, you know, so down to earth, great people in and around it. And I'm sure you'll echo that, Frankie, from what you've seen in your early days there.
Ah, yeah, there's great people, great people. Obviously, being from Bedford, there's some people that I was familiar with before, I've met over the years while they've been going. And again, we always talk about culture, how important culture is, and it's brilliant. I mean, look, the one thing you're not going to get, like at Kettering, is you're not going to get 600 away fans. You're not going to get 1,500 every week through the gate. Not yet, anyway. Um, but in terms of just working with good people, like they've got a very clear vision, they've got a very good strategy in place that that they work by, and they've already had success from it
Yeah.
and they want to keep continue that success, and that's something that I think fits very well with me in terms of not just the type of coach I am, but in how I work as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I guess moving forward from that, you know, Zach kind of touched on it there about, you know, Pete coming in and making, you know, football in Bedford, making this big soul team and, you know, a a real community aspect in Bedford with Real Bedford and having a massive football team in the town, you obviously would have been aware of, the plans for the mergers between the two teams a couple of months ago when they came up and so forth. And I just wanted to grab your thoughts very quickly, if you could, on, the potential of that happening, or just a potential of a team in Bedford getting to, like you say, the National League or the EFL.
Yeah, look, I understand it's a sensitive one for some people because it's the yin and yang. You get Bedford Town, which is such a traditional club it's been around for decades and decades, and it's had relative success. But for the success it has had, it means a lot to those fans and people. And then you've got Real Bedford on the other side, who's almost like the new kids on the block, the disruptors, and I kind of love that as well.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's whether listen, I just want to see Bedford do well, and I don't. It's tough because you look at sometimes like Biggleswade, they've got 3 teams. They don't need 3 teams. You think how much better the club could be, the town could be with just one. Now that may be the case with Bedford. It might not. I mean, if we can do well and Bedford Town do well as well, and we don't merge, then fantastic. Because again, it's just about Bedford doing well.
Yeah.
If things do align and we can go on that journey together, then that's brilliant. And it's, as I said, there's some traditionalists like Bedford Town fans who might not be pulled to that, and there might be some Real Bedford fans who might not be. But I can see the sort of best in both because I grew up playing for Bedford Town youth teams. But as I said, growing up, the club never had the ambition that maybe Real Bedford has with the resources it has to achieve it.
Yeah, definitely. Zach, have you got anything to add on Real Bedford at all before we move on to the next bit?
No, not really. But sort of the fact, sort of Real Bedford has sort of also just pushed Bedford Town that bit further. Obviously, like Bedford getting promoted to the National League North, which like massive step. Yeah, I think overall Real Bedford has actually been very good for Bedford itself, and yeah.
No, definitely. I
Absolutely.
agree with that 100%. I mean, I couldn't have you on, Frankie, of course, without talking, in depth about Kettering and, some things about that, because, it's where I first met you, and you had great successes there from all kinds, from youth level right to the senior level, and the successes of last season, of course. And we have to talk about last season because it may not have been the fairy tale ending with the promotion, but you yourself and the players, the rest of the coaching staff did a tremendous job bringing the feel-good factor back to Latimer Park and giving fans such precious memories like the night in Northampton and so many more. I mean, now the dust has settled on that playoff final defeat, how do you evaluate the season?
Exactly as you just said. Exactly as you just said. Listen, like we all wanted the promotion. We was all working hard for it. But look, as football, like it was a tough game because I felt it was there for us, but for some reason, just it didn't align and it didn't go our way. But when you look at where the club was a year before that, we'd finished 17th in the league. It was a poor season off the back of a couple other poor seasons. It was really it wasn't a very positive place to be. And then when Labs came in just towards the end of the season, we finished okay, but we knew it was going to be a big turnover. And then when you had the new owners coming in, a lot of ambition coming, but there was a lot of work to do towards it as well. And the fact that, I mean, starting in the season, you're bringing into a squad, you're making up a squad, but Kettering wasn't an attractive place. It had been in 2 relegation battles. It's had a reputation for money issues, pitch issues, a bit of uncertainty behind the scenes. So it was hard to recruit players, and then to go on and have the season that we had. Like the biggest thing for me is, like you said, it made people fall in love with the club again.
Yeah, definitely.
Because listen, if you're doing well, people's going to come and join in as well. But I thought we had so many great nights, and to top it off with the cup run in Northampton, like it's amazing because you got so many messages and so many people saying that's the biggest result in Kettering's history, and sometimes those things goes beyond just 3 points on a Saturday, because it's the moments people share with, I don't know, you might have a parents with their children who's been following the club for years and years and years,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
they'll always remember that, having that moment together.
No, 100%. I mean, that night at Northampton as well, mate, it was obviously, I was there, it was special. I mean, I was in the Northampton end, but, I enjoyed it nonetheless. I mean, and we spoke about Luca Miller, didn't we, earlier? I mean, someone like that coming off the bench to put in a spectacular performance, get a goal and assist the winner as well. I mean, what was that moment like for him, and for you as well? Like I said earlier, having worked with him for so long.
Do you know what? The best thing about Luca is nothing phases him.
No.
Nothing phases him. So even when he was 16 years old, he'd come into the Kettering Academy, he wanted to play first team. He went and played Step 5, and whatever level he went in, like, he bides his time, he works hard for a few weeks, got into the first team, and then played regularly.
Yeah.
Then the following season, wanted to go challenge himself at Step 4 and Step 3, and whichever environment he's gone in, he's always rose to the challenge just because of hard work, dedication, and belief. And so I remember with the Northampton game, I never felt he'd be out of his depth at all. I actually thought he'd flourish in the game. I didn't expect him to do what he did.
Yeah.
With scoring the win and the assist, but I was so proud of him because it's funny. I remember speaking to him afterwards, and he was actually saying that he actually felt that game was easier than some Step 3 games, which I can absolutely get.
Yeah, it's about flourishing in certain environments, isn't it? Because I guess for Luca as a player who so technical, isn't he, and really good with the ball. I mean, coming in at Step 3, maybe I don't know if you agree or not, but somewhere maybe where he maybe is still developing is the strength from the game, isn't it? Strength with the ball potentially, and the physicality in Step 3. So it's all about that environment, isn't it? And some players do flourish in different games, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about adding to your game.
Yeah.
You can't just be a good technical player without the physical side. If you just do the physical side, then you're limited with where you can go. So it's about adding all these tools and helping you progress up the leagues. And and Luca's done that, but also so many other players. People forget it's something that I was a little bit salty with, if you will. But rightly so. A lot of the attention goes on your like Marvin Sordell's, who was a Gary Hooper, Noel Ranger, because of the levels they played. But people forget we had such a young squad and so many players who just had the game of their lives that sometimes go under the radar. I mean, if you look at the age of the back four, but it was quite young. We had Ben Hart, I think 22, Aaron Powell 21. Even CJ and Whitey's only mid-20s. And you go throughout the team, and I thought the performance from every single player was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that gets overlooked because of just the ones who go and get the goal, or because they're named, they get more of the talk. But no, every single player done fantastic.
No, 100%. I think it's interesting you say that because, yes, Niall Ranger may have scored the winner on the day, but I think players like Luca, I think Whitey in particular had a great game at the back, and Jezef in goal as well. I mean, it is, interesting you say about those sort of players maybe not getting the headlines just because of having people like the big ex-Premier League players in the team. But in terms of those ex-Premier League players, Marvin Sordell, like you said, Hooper and Ranger as well, what was it like to be coaching them sort of players,
Yeah, do you know what? Fine. Like, what was good about all three of them is that there was no ego. That they came in quite humble, and people might be surprised at that, especially with someone like Niall. But listen, you have to manage everyone. You have to manage everyone, but there was no especially with like Hooper. You look at the career he's had.
Yeah.
He come in, there was no entitlement at all. He was just someone who just loved his football, and that probably goes back to when he was coming through at Grays. He had playing non-league. He had a great team at that era with like Michael Kitely, Aaron McLean, who went on to play higher, and he's gone all the way to very top. Played Nou Camp Barcelona, but then he just loves football, so he had no problem coming on a Tuesday night to Lamb Arch training, or going away to certain places. As I said, no ego, just love for football, which again, it goes back to your point, Zachary, about getting the right characters as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
I just one thing as well from me going back to Lavs and what a personality and he is and so forth. Because when me and Bailey sat down with Harty, he was very keen on Lavs, very much praising him and his coaching styles and whatnot. What was it like working with him?
Brilliant, brilliant. And again, I think bit because the way the season finished and we didn't obviously get the promotion, I think if you look at our season, people often think because we went on such a good run earlier that we was a brilliant team and then we dipped off towards the end of the season. I don't look at it like that. I thought we was a good team who was excelling, and then we probably went to a good level.
Yeah.
Which I think was all due to lads. Because again, you think we were starting pre-season, we didn't have a team. I think we had several signed players. We had about 20 trialists come on the first couple of weeks of pre-season. It is mental. It was on the phone non-stop trying to get players in. And then when you see the level of performances the players were putting in, it's because they all wanted to play for the manager. And he's just got that infectious personality, which makes you want to run through a wall for him. I mean, I was on the coaching staff, but I wanted to go out and play in 112k, just run my bollocks off for him, because he has that, and and it meant a lot for him as well.
Yeah.
So again, we're disappointed with how the season ended, and I'm glad for everyone involved for that. But then I'm also pleased that he can take a lot of pride in having Northampton and having that cup run and the experience, because I think he deserves a lot of flowers for giving Kettering the best season in the last couple of years, because I know you was there for the National League North season, the season before, where it wasn't a very happy place to be.
No, definitely. I definitely echo that, and I think it, like I said earlier, it brought the feel-good factor back to the ground, didn't it? And you saw that with more fans coming in through the gate. Obviously, stuff like the FA Cup run helps stuff like that, doesn't it? It brings the attention back to the club, but your bread and butter is the league at the end of the day, and you were getting a lot of numbers after the FA Cup run still in the league campaign and everything. Zach, have you got anything to add at all?
Well, yeah, with the cup run, especially just bringing that feel good factor, as you said. Obviously, I'm a St Albans fan, and a few years ago we had a cup run and won in the first round against Forest Green, and that feel good factor was just unreal and just one of the best memories of my life. And obviously, this season we didn't really have a feel good factor, getting relegated. But yeah, it's just really just cup runs do so much for the community and the whole city as a whole. And yeah.
Do you know what? And it goes back to my dad spent 2.5 years at Birmingham City, best time of his career. And I've been with my dad to whether he's done an after dinner in Birmingham or when they've played each other. They played each other at London Road earlier this year, and then in the EFL Trophy. And honestly, the Birmingham fans worship him. And you'll get success in football, promotions and cups and that, but it's those moments that really connect. And like you just said, Zach, you've got those memories of the FA Cup run because it's either the people you share it with, or because you're such a fan for so long, they don't come around often. So that's probably the most satisfying thing for me in football, when you can contribute in a small way to people having those moments and those experiences, because that's what football's about. It's going to be a result that people talk about years to come now. Listen, Kettering will get more promotions. As I said, I'd love to have helped him get there, and we all wanted him to get promoted, but they might go and get promoted this year, and get that. But the memories of the Northampton games, that's people that will live with people for forever.
No, definitely, 100%. I mean, you and the coaching staff have all obviously gone on to pastures new and new journeys and new chapters. But I think, all the Kettering fans will agree that they'll be grateful for the season, digging them out of, like you said, 2 relegation battles that they were in the 2 years prior to that, and other stuff years before. What you've gave to, you as a coaching staff and the players, the rest of the group, giving them, like we've said already over the last couple of minutes, great precious memories. And is there anything that you want to, looking back on your time as a whole at Kettering, not just the last season, how would you evaluate that as such?
Oh, br- brilliant. Look, for me, you learn just as much through the bad times as the good. Going into league, like getting my first opportunity from league lover, like to work with the first
Mm.
team, and having the season we did in National League North, where I think the team we put together by the end of the season was so close to staying,
Yeah.
retaining our position there, and I think that was a good mid-table National League North team. Unfortunately, it just took us too long to find that balance, and
Mm.
then we had a couple of injuries when we did. Going back in the season before last, it was a tough time. It was really tough to manage that, but it all makes you stronger. It all uh, it promotes growth and strength when you go through it. So yeah, I look back at very fond memories because, as I said, every club's its own mess. So even the bad things you can learn from, and
Mm.
then I'm very grateful that we was able to have some success as well. I mean, you look at even like the Harbour, the semi-finals,
Yeah.
and it might be a little bit sad because we didn't then go and win the final against Telford, but they're still great nights in football to experience.
Mm. No, definitely. Hey, Zach, have you got anything final to add before we slowly start to wrap it up?
No, no.
Perfect. I mean,
I think,
Frank, some of the final things I wanted to bring then, because obviously throughout your whole coaching journey, I just wanted to find out some of the best players you've coached, some of the most enjoyable players you've had the pleasure of coaching so far.
Oh, going back through to Peterborough Academy, working with Harrison Burrows, just a great footballer. Loved his football and see him progress and develop the way he did.
Mm.
Um, but we also had a lad called Archie Jones in that group who's now at Real Bedford, and what a character! So I'm looking forward to working with him again. Um, look, Luke and Miller, Frankie Maguire, and the all common denominator is that they all just love their football.
Yeah.
They're just all mad about football. They just can't get enough, whether it's getting there early to get some extra touches in, staying behind to do extras, how focused they are off the pitch in doing everything um, like around football. They're the players that I most enjoy coaching
Mm.
because I'm the same. I'm the same. So I love I love people who just love the game.
No, I mean, credit to you. And I think some of those players, like you said, obviously, knowing Luca, he is someone who, works hard. And like you said before, just does those extras that are so crucial and have got him to where he is today. I mean, the final question I'll ask then, Frankie, is something we ask all the guests, and it's a leaving message as such. And it's if you have any advice for someone to struggling, sorry, to find their feet in football, what would that be?
Uh, just keep going. It sounds harsh. There's so many ups and downs that you can experience, and as I said before, I think resilience is a big buzzword in terms of values and cultures.
Mm.
But when you actually break down what resilience is, it promotes growth. And everyone thinks that everything needs to be on an upward trajectory to be going well, but the fact is there's so many more downs. But it's by getting through them and embracing them, and in a strange way enjoying them, because every challenge you get stronger from it.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that like, they can be a borderline, but hard times create strong people.
Mm.
And then when you do get success, um, it feels so much sweeter. So anyone going through tough times now, for a player that might be someone who's in and out of the team, you know, you can't expect anything to change overnight. I think one thing you do get at this level is if players aren't playing, they're so quick to want to change team and go somewhere else. But sometimes, do you know what? You just got to bide your time. Sometimes you just got to get your head down and just work hard, train hard, take your opportunity when you get it. Just be totally accountable for everything that's in your control.
No, and I think that's a great way to round off, mate. I mean, Frankie, thank you for sitting down with us today, mate, and I wish you all the best for your future endeavours and everything with Real Bedford this season. I know I'll be watching closely. I'm sure Zach will be watching closely as
yeah.
well, mate.
Yeah, no, look forward to and appreciate finally you getting me on. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you at one of the games as well, either down at our place or at Latimer Park.
Oh, no, hopefully, mate, hopefully. I mean, Zach, thank you for being here as well again, mate. I'm really enjoying having you here, pal.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's right. And finally, thank you
Cheers,
to
Zach.
everyone who has tuned in. Be sure to give us a rating on Spotify if you're listening on there or on YouTube. Hit the like and subscribe buttons. Plenty of stuff going on in terms of content this summer. But until next time, we will see you then.